Welcome to a video from thedigital.com. This video I'm going to be looking at the new FB-01 emulator called the FB-02 from Full Bucket. It's a free tool, plugin, and I've got it running here in Cubase. And I thought I'd have a look at this. I've got a DX100 here, so we could compare some of the sounds side by side. They're not exactly the same, the FB-01 and the DX100, but they're similar. And before I start, I should explain what the FB-01 was. So the FB-01 is an FM tone expander, released in 1986, and it was real budget line, and it was really aimed at home users rather than professional studios. So you think you've got the rack-mounted FM like the TX81Z or the TX816, or even I've got a TX7 over there. Those were aimed at more professional. The FB-01 was aimed at more the home. It's a 4-operator FM synth, just like the DX100, DX27, DX21 and DX9. Not the same as the TX81Z, which had multiple waveforms. This is the sine wave one. And the idea of this, and the unique thing at that time, was that it was multi-timbral. So you could plug it up into your setup, and then you could have bass on one MIDI channel, you could have guitar on another MIDI channel, and you could incorporate it in your systems. The interesting thing for me was that my grandfather, who was an organist, here he is sometime in the 1960s playing a Hammond, had at that stage in the 80s he had a Yamaha Electone, and he bought an FB-01 to patch into his Electone and use some of those FM sound in there as well. And I inherited it. I already had the DX100, which he bought for me. So I didn't get that much use out of it. I found it immensely frustrating with the front panel. You couldn't do any editing. You could just assign MIDI channels and voice notes. So I never got that much use out of it. So it's a great time to revisit that. Okay, just quick insert into the video here. I've been playing around with it since doing the video. And as I suspected as I went through demonstrating the presets, they are different to the sound. The equal sounds on the DX100 and the FB-02 are sometimes different. And by tweaking them a little bit, I've managed to get them the same. I suspect it's because the parameters are quite a little bit different, and the presets could be different as well. But I noticed some of the envelopes were slightly different, and some of the levels were slightly different. For example, the EP that I was playing with later in the video, I just noticed some of the rates were different as well. So a bit of tweaking the rates, you can get them closer. So I suspect overall the presets are slightly mellower than the DX100, which is a combination of the program changes being slightly different, and there's no velocity on there. The other thing I forgot to mention in the video as well is you can learn these as well. I don't know if this is actual. There's a slight, I would say, a bug on here. Let me just. So here you can see I'm changing the volume here. I've mapped that to, and I'll show you how I do it actually. So you go to learn, pick the control, and then just do the control. So my multi-poly, I'm using the volume, the mod controls, and you can see it's changing that. But at first I thought it wasn't working because you can't see anything visually on the screen as I'm changing that. But you can hear as it does make a difference. What I would probably do is start to set up some of the learn for the levels and rate adjusts. I've got a key stage with multiple controls on it, so I could actually have the level and the frequency on each of a separate control, and you can really get real hands-on control with that. Okay, back to the video. So here is the FB-02. I've got it in Cubase. It works. There's various formats for it of the plugin, and you can see the user interface is a very Moog-esque, isn't it? Mini Moog-esque design, which is interesting for FM. But actually, it kind of makes sense because here you've got your 4 operators and envelopes and familiar things that you're used to. So I'm not going to spend ages talking about FM synthesis. That's probably a video another time. But effectively, you get carriers and modulators, and then algorithms. So one oscillator, if you're thinking in old oscillator terms, one oscillator can change another oscillator, and then you can have that changed by another oscillator and another oscillator, which is in like this step one in that algorithm there. Or you can have combinations though. So in this case, you've got two oscillators, you can modify each other in two pairs. So you could have octave apart or detuned, all that kind of thing. So we'll have a quick play with FM later, but let's have a listen to it first. And like I said earlier, I've got my DX100 here just to give us some sound comparisons. On this side, I've got my I've got the FB-02 controlled by my multi-poly. The difference between the two is there's the FB-02 responds to velocity, the DX100 responds to velocity, but the keyboard doesn't have velocity. So we're getting these things without any velocity on there. So let's have a listen to some of the sounds now, and we'll compare them side by side. We'll start with that one that's got electric bass. So if you've got a nice browser on here, and you can see all the presets. And they're broken down. I think 3 to 7 are the ones on the FB-01, and these are some ones that they've created, a full bucket of created. And actually, they're more interesting sounds than the presets, primarily because in 1986, when this came out, people wanted it to synthesize real instruments. That's predominantly why FM was popular. You could create an electric piano, you could have an organ, you could have a guitar, you could have strings, and that was stuff that, say, the analog synthesis was good. I mean, it's a whole debate about analog synthesis, FM synthesis. I've got some interesting podcasts on DX synthesis if you check out on my YouTube channel, actually. But anyway, so that's why you hear, or you see on the list here, a lot of recreation type sounds rather than special sort of FM synthesis sounds, which is actually what this is really good for. It's in a nice compact form factor. So this was multi-timbral, but of course we can just use multiple MIDI channels now. We don't need to do that multi-timbral thing like we did back in the day with the fiddly little buttons on the front, which used to drive me crazy. So let's find that that bass sound where I've got it open. So this one, it's called eBass2 on here. There might be an eBass1 somewhere. Let me just have a quick check. And then we've got eBass1. Which is, eBass1 is different to the eBass electric bass on the DX100. So this is the electric bass on the DX100. As you can see, they're pretty similar. I'll find a couple of sounds which are virtually identical. So I don't think it's much the recreation is different. I think the patches are different. I did try and export and import them back in and from the DX100 to the FB-02, but the SysX is slightly different and I need a conversion tool. So that's something maybe for future video. But you can hear that characteristic FM sound. And if I go back to the editor, you can see how it's done. It's using algorithm 1, and then you can see the levels that are in there. So this is the factory presets. One thing I did notice, I'll play solid bass in a second, which is kind of a famous bass sound from the DX100 and FB-01. You can hear some noise on there, and you can't on there. So, especially if I go low, there is a little bit of noise on the low ones, but it's a lot more pronounced on the DX100. It could be the FB-01 was slightly better. I can't remember it being much different, to be honest, when I had both side by side. But I do find that the DX100 is slightly noisier. But the sounds are pretty much the same. Let's find the solid bass one. I think on the FB-01 it was called S-Bass, Sol Bass, that's it. And on here it's called solid bass. So that's the famous one. I think it's quite noisy, isn't it? There's still some noise on there, but it's not as bright. The whole thing is not as bright as this one. So like I say, it could be the difference in the programming. So this is another example, new electric piano, new EP. And it's not as rich and dynamic as the one on the DX7. I've got a TX7 over there, but that's because it's 4 operator, and I never found it had the same dynamics and richness with it. But of course it is responsive to velocity. Over here on the DX100, there's no velocity, but So I would say it sounds slightly brighter than on that one, but again, I don't want to spend too much time. It's programming on it as well. Here's upright piano. And here on the DX100. But as you can see, there's a whole lot of sounds in here to play with to give you that 1986 vibe. So we've got a lot of pianos. Not something that the F4 operator is great at acoustic pianos. It's not so bad at electric pianos, but acoustic. There's grand. And there's some nice, that's an electric grand, but it's actually nice and usable. And some of these sounds are instantly recognizable. There's the glockenspiel. Again, that brightness difference, isn't there? So maybe that is just inherent with the tool, and it's great to have those access to those 4 operator sounds if you've not got them. The other banks as well that come with it are some really nice sounds as well. And these do sound brighter than the presets, so that could be points to the programming. All the sound effects are in there as well. The racing car is in there, I think. I should be able to find that one. There's the two, the racing cars. So there was like, Wind Bell were always my favourite. And Storm. And then, I said, you've got tons of great sounds in there. And it's really easy just to add another channel and just have multiple to get you that full FM sound. So if you want the 6 operator, then I think DXT is always a great example of that. But if you want that classic FB-01 sound and the 4 operator sound, then yeah, why not try this? It's free. It's worth, it comes in multiple formats, and it's really worth playing with. You've got all the presets in there, and of course you can create your own sounds. The interface makes it nice and easy really to create your own sounds. Let's have a quick look at that just to finish off. We can go to it, initialize program. Let's go with these 2 pair ones. This is always a good example one. So we have 2 and 1 linked together, and 3 and 4. So you can hear those. And as we adjust the, let's just turn them down. But you can hear that second oscillator come in, modulating it, and the frequency. And of course, if we put some envelopes on that, you'll hear that sort of a different sound. So it starts off simple and kicks in, and we could add some release on that one. So you can do some, you can see it's really easy to program like that. And then let's just turn these down for a second and turn this one up. And we can make this a nice percussive sound. Like that. Then bring them back in, and you hear the 2 pairs now make one sound. I think it's in mono mode, isn't it? Yeah. And just to show what you can do when you get these sounds, I've just added some chorus delay reverb. So you can hear it doesn't sound dull at all, that does it? So I really am suspecting it's the presets need tweaking to match the DX100. So of course I can save that. and I could send that to an FB-01 if I wanted. Okay, so I'm just having a look at the on screen on this electric piano one. Yeah, and I can see some differences. The feedback is 0 on this one. I think it's 6 on that one. So I'm looking at just say the frequency and operator 4 on the DX100 is at 15, and this was at 7. And I've just tweaked that, and safe rate is closer. So it's what I suspected, that the FB-01 patches are slightly tweaked from the DX100 ones, which is why they're not sounding exactly like for like when I do the demo. So maybe I'll play around with this a bit more and get them exactly right, and I can show you and I can compare that. Like I said, I'd like to export them. So then that's a quick look at the FB-02. It's a fun little thing to add into your collection. It doesn't cost you anything, so give it a try, and it take you back to 86 without the frustration of those 9 little buttons on the FB-01. Thanks for watching this video. Check out videos about DXs and how it was developed, the different models and everything. We've got quite a few special DX ones on the YouTube channel on some of the synth chat videos, so check out that, and I'll see you on the next video.